Pittsburgh State's Department of Health, Human Performance, and Recreation presents In Practice, a podcast that puts the student at the center of our conversations as we explore topics throughout the world of sport, exercise science, recreation, hospitality, physical education, and wellness. This week, Peak Sports team members Greyson Allen and Marissa Poppe join Assistant Professor Shelby Hutchins, and they dive into Peak's unique role in collegiate athletics, the niche markets that are D1 FCS and D2 institutions, current trends and sponsor activation, NIL's forthcoming impact on sponsorship, and how students can start their careers in sport. It was a great conversation. We hope you enjoy it. So we've got Marissa and Greyson in from Peak Sports with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourselves first off.
So I can start off. So first, thank you for having us on and letting us talk a little bit about Peak and a little bit about myself. So my name is Greyson Allen. I'm the sales and hiring coordinator at Peak Sport Management. So a little bit about what I do. I oversee all the hiring, the recruiting, also creating relationships with sport management programs to try and help get students opportunities with Peak. We're also running our internship program. So literally anything that has to do with finding someone and placing them somewhere, getting someone hired goes through me in some capacity. Anything that has to do with recruiting, internships, anything like that goes all through me in some way, shape, or form. I guess a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I grew up playing literally anything I could get my hands onto, from baseball to golf to tennis to basketball. Never got into football. My parents didn't want me to get hurt, even though I really wanted to. So
We're big in swimming though, right?
I was a junior national silver medalist, which really doesn't matter that much now because that was like at the early years of high school. And if I walk around saying that, no one really cares. But I did some club and got some college offers and did that through high school, and really kind of just wanted to take a step back and focus on life and school and my career and where I was going with that. So I did that for a long time. So that was really good. Taught me a lot of life lesson skills and whatnot. But I grew up in Dallas, lived in Sherman, Texas for a little bit, if anybody knows where that is. Moved to San Antonio for high school. Then after high school, started at the University of North Texas, and then went into the University of Texas A&M Commerce to get my bachelor's in sport management. And I'm currently about to finish my master's in international sport management. I have one more class, so almost done. That's a little bit of my background, I guess. Work experience. I started my career with Peak as a part-time professional working the tournaments. Then started as an intern over the summer at their headquarters here in Texas. I did everything from running their social media to try and create events, do some digital marketing, did some sales, hopped on the phone, did some cold calling to try and sell some sponsorships. Basically anything I get my hands on. I really just wanted to try and literally do everything and just learn as much as possible. After that, when I started my master's, I was a grad assistant doing some research in hidden disabilities in sport for a little while, presented at some conferences with some research. Then after that, this past March, I guess not past March because it's 2020, geez. Last year's March, Pete called me up and asked if I wanted to come on full time as their sales and hiring coordinator. And when you go from an unpaid college student to being put on salary and getting an opportunity to do something, I said yes very fast. And now I've been with Peak for almost 11 months, which is insane to think about. That's where I'm at now.
How'd you get your start with Peak specifically?
So funny story. When I was getting my bachelor's degree, I was in a class with one of my professors, Dr. Clayton Bolton at Texas A&M Commerce. And every day he would come into class and say, "Hey, you do realize that you got to get some kind of experience if you want a job after this, right?" And every day I'd be like, "Oh, that's probably something I should do," and just never did it. And then towards the start of my senior year, he came and said it again. And for whatever reason, something clicked, and I ran into his office and I said, "Hey, I really want to be in sports. No idea what I want to do. I have no experience. I've got good grades, but that doesn't really matter that much, especially when someone wants me to sell something." So he knew Nathan Wooldridge and Ryan Holloway. So Nathan is our VP of events. And so Peak, we put on 2 Division I collegiate baseball tournaments out here in Texas called the Frisco and Round Classic. And so he connected me with Nathan and Ryan Holloway, one of our owners and president. Connected with me and him, and he connected with me and him around November, and our tournaments are February and March. And so I basically reached out to him and said, "Hey, can you give me something to do? Literally anything, whether it's paid, unpaid, I don't care what I have to do. Just let me do something." And so he asked if I wanted to be a team host. And so a team host is basically liaison between one of the teams that we bring in for our tournaments. You basically do anything they want you to do, whether it's laundry, get them food, fill up their water coolers, answer questions, basically at their beck and call. And so I got placed with Stanford baseball and Illinois baseball. Was with them for 2 weekends, and basically just was on my feet for 12 hours a day, got like 5 hours of sleep, exhausted, my feet hurt. But that was kind of the first time I got my niche into the sports industry that kind of really told me that this is what I want to do long term. That's where it started, and then just rode the wave with Peak ever since.
And when you were selecting your major, was Peak even a thought, or did you just say, I've been involved in sport my whole life, sounds like something I could make a career out of? How did that go about with, picking your major and ending up where you are now?
Yeah, so my first 2 years of college, I went straight into general business. And my first ever class my freshman year was an intro to general business. And the guy that taught it was a consultant that literally changed Fortune 500 companies. And it was the most terrifying thing that I've ever been a part of in my life. And it taught me very fast that is not what I wanted to do. And so I feel like for the most part, everyone that's involved with sport in some way wants to stay in sports. They just don't really know how or what that looks like. And, with sport management being an industry that's still kind of growing, it's becoming a lot more predominant, but it's still a growing industry that, I feel like a lot of, especially high schoolers, don't really know exists, especially, freshmen and sophomores in college, unless they get integrated straight into the program, they have no idea that this kind of industry exists. When you tell someone there's someone behind desks selling tickets, running the video board ads, selling sponsors and generating revenue at sporting events, they're like, what do you mean? There's just people playing, the games on the field. It's just a weird thought that you don't really have. And so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do instead of general business, I sat down with my professor at Commerce at the time before going to Commerce. And he said, what do you want to do? I was like, I have no idea. Genuinely, I don't know. I just know that I enjoy business to a certain extent because that's every aspect of life in the working industry. And I was like, and I love sports. It's like, so I don't really know what that looks like. And he was like, you heard of sport management? I was like, I have no idea what that is. And then he explained it. I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's how I got into sport management. And Peak and all these other sport organizations were never really on my mind. It was kind of just get myself into the industry and just learn as much as I could through academia and then hope that something comes out of it. I did tell him at one point that I wanted to work for the Mavericks, and he shut that down very fast, kind of giving me a little bit of a realization saying that's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And after I did my part-time gig with Peak is when I was like, wow, I need to be a part of this in some way.
Yeah. And your story is so familiar, and I think it's something that a lot of students deal with throughout their journey, especially as you mentioned in their first couple of years when they're trying to figure out what it is they want to do. And you're right. Sport management historically is still a very, very young discipline, and we're kind of a weird amalgam of a whole bunch of different things. So unless you kind of get turned on to it, like you had a academic counselor do for you, and unless you get a spotlight shown on it, it's difficult to conceptualize, okay, what does that mean? But yeah, it's all the infrastructure to sporting events. It's all the infrastructure to parks and recreation. We have a lot of professionals that go on to work for corporate firms as well, with wellness initiatives becoming a bigger and bigger part of what companies are doing on a daily basis. So yeah, that's something our field is historically struggled with and will in all likelihood to some extent continue to. But I think that's why it's good to have these conversations as well. Hopefully get that education piece out there. Thanks, Greyson. What about you, Marissa? Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I am a Girard native, so right down the road, if you guys are familiar with the area. Grew up playing sports all my life, and was fortunate enough to be a student athlete here at Pittsburgh State. So I played basketball from 06 to 11, best times of my life, and brought me a lot of great experiences. I got my degree actually in technology education, kind of like Greyson didn't know there are a whole lot of jobs in sports other than being a coach or an athletic director. Didn't really know there's jobs in between. So I kind of took the route of, okay, I want to do sports. Let me be a teacher and I'll coach. So that's why I was getting my degree in education. And then I thought I would be like a high school AD or something. So wanted to further my education at sport management. So I got my master's at Wichita State. And while I was there, that's when my eyes opened to all the possibilities in sports. You can do it, like Greyson said, accounting. You can be into numbers and stats and be an SID. You can write for the stories and marketing, sponsorship, sales, compliance. So my eyes opened to the world of sport, and I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a different way I want to go other than being a coach or an athletic director. And that's kind of when I started to get more leaning into the marketing and sales side of things. And also looked into rec because I didn't know much about rec either. So looking into the YMCAs and city programs and stuff like that. So while I was there, I did my internship with the Kansas City Chiefs. I got very lucky in that sense. One of my classmates who I became friends with did that internship, and then she gave me a very nice reference. So kind of got my foot in the door there, and my first sports job, unpaid internship, but you do what you got to do. Got my class credit and was able to graduate. And then after that, I actually got a job in recreation on the rec side. I was a sports director at the Andover YMCA. Loved it, had a great time. But the AD here, Jim Johnson at Pitt State, called me and said there was a position available. And I had to jump on it. Alma mater, Pitt State, love it. It's home. Got to work in collegiate athletics versus the rec side of things. So I jumped on the opportunity. So I worked as an assistant AD for the athletic department from 2013 to 17, so about 4 years. I wanted to test out the D1 life. And so I got a job at Southern Illinois in Carbondale with the SIU Salukis, doing a similar role, marketing. We had a third party, Learfield, doing sponsorships there, but got the opportunity to work. I do sales here now, but got a taste on the other side of things with the marketing at the Division One level. And it was wonderful. Loved my experience there, and I miss it, but this is home. And so I moved back to be around family because I have a family of my own now. So being around grandparents is important. So moved back to Pittsburgh, and this opportunity was available. And I feel very fortunate to be back at Pitt State and working in the athletic department on the sponsorship side of things, not the marketing side. So working with Peak Sports, and Greyson got to help with my interview process, and I got lucky enough to come back. So
awesome. So to those points, and I think you alluded to a little bit, you've seen both sides of this, right? You've been on the athletic administration side and now on the third party sponsor management, sponsor activation side of things. So break that down for us. What do those differences look like? Kind of what are the unique things that Peak or another third party like that brings to the table that, you know, an athletic administrator might not necessarily be able to?
Absolutely. Big question.
Yeah.
I think first I'll start out with kind of breaking it down from maybe D2 to D1, because when I first was at Pittsburgh State, I was doing the marketing and the sponsorship sales side of things. So really the only time I had an opportunity to sell was when we weren't in season. So kind of late spring throughout the summer. I focused more so on sponsorship sales, but then once events started, I really had to change my focus in marketing, getting butts and seats, fulfilling the sponsorships. So not so much the sales side. So I had to balance more, less focus on just one area. So, you know, you can't do as much as you'd like because you have more buckets to fill. And just time and resources are limited. Maybe a little bit more freedom to do whatever you want because you were in charge of it all. So pros and cons to that. But right before I left is when we actually talked to Peak and brought them on. But what a third party brings to the table, which is where Pitt State's fortunate enough, and where I was with Southern Illinois and having Learfield, is just like resources. So providing more staff and not having to pay for it, because Peak does. They're spending all of their time looking for sponsorships. So then it frees up time for another staff member to focus just on marketing. So you're able to expand what you're doing in these departments, help with resources, help with funding. And since we brought Peak on, our sponsorship sales have grown over double. So you're bringing in more money because you do have somebody coming in who has a little bit more experience in this field, but then commit all their time just to sponsorships. So.
Gotcha. So then, to delineate things a little bit further, what exactly does Peak do in their role? You mentioned sponsorship, sales, management, and the marketing side of things. Looking over Peak's website, seems like they do 3 things in particular in the collegiate side of things, and then they have a whole other event management side. But within the collegiate services, which is kind of, as it's advertised, at least their main bucket of their main focus. So sponsorship, sales, and fulfillment, they assess at 95%. They also have this 115% model thing. Feel free to expand on that if you want, but sponsorship, sales, and fulfillment, the 95%, the marketing is 10%, and staffing is that other 10%, all of which Marissa alluded to there. So break those 3 things down for us. I'm guessing that's kind of where you two spend most, if not all of your time. I don't know how much of the event management you do, Greyson. It sounds like you have a little bit of experience with it, serving as a team host. I'm guessing that's that part of the house, but break those 3 things down for us. What do these things mean? What does your day look like on a daily basis? So on and so forth.
So yeah, I can break down it kind of in layman's terms a little bit. So for those that don't fully understand, essentially what we do as a third-party sponsorship sales revenue generating company, think of it like this. So whenever we partner with a university, we send typically 1 to 2 people to be a general manager to oversee the corporate partnership. So the best example, obviously, is using Marissa and Pitt State. So Marissa will reach out into local businesses in the Pittsburgh area. And let's use Chick-fil-A for as an example. She'll reach out to Chick-fil-A and say, hey, you're selling X amount of chicken sandwiches right now. How would you like some more advertising to bring in and sell more chicken sandwiches? And they're like, oh my God, that'd be awesome. How do I do that? And Marissa will say, well, I work with Pittsburgh State Athletics. We would love for you to become the official chicken partner or be a partner of Pittsburgh State Athletics. There's a lot of college kids that love Chick-fil-A. How about you pay us X amount of dollars for 3 years, and we'll give you some advertising through, video board promotions, social media outreaches. We'll do some signage around different parts of the stadium, football, basketball, all of our different types of facilities, super simple, basic type of promotions that just kind of gets your logo in front of fans. At these football games, there's going to be a lot of college students that are going to be hungry after this game. And every time that they see Chick-fil-A, it's going to be rendering in the back of their head, which means more money in your pocket, just for how much you're spending on advertising. And then, she could add in there and say, on top of that, we love to get fans engaged. We love to get fans excited about Chick-fil-A. So how about this? We take 2 fans out of the stadium, 2 from 2 different sections. We'll put them in a Chick-fil-A cow costume. We'll have them do a 40-yard dash. Whoever wins that entire session gets free coupons for, chicken minis. Not only does that mean that more fans are excited about Chick-fil-A, the fans that aren't involved are going to be saying, hey, I want Chick-fil-A. I'm going to go get Chick-fil-A. Whatever they want to do is fine. I'm going to go get it myself. Or the fans that get those coupons, they're not just going to buy chicken minis. They're going to come in, they're going to buy an orange juice, they're going to buy coffee, they're going to buy hash browns. So there's all this extra revenue coming in that exposes Chick-fil-A, even though it's a very popular brand, but gets more on their brain. And so that's kind of the break it down in kind of layman terms and simple terms. And then kind of what you mentioned about, the 95%. Everything that we do at the end of the day is to raise revenue for an athletic department, for our student athletes, for our university, and in the tradition, everything that they uphold, making sure that we are generating revenue for them so that they can continue to grow and succeed in what they're doing, which also allows us to grow and expand and do the same thing over and over again. And so with that, at the end of the day, our core is sponsorship sales. Sales is our core. Now we do a number of different things. What's kind of interesting about us is, if typically if you go to a high Power 5 D1 top university, you have 3 people doing the selling, 3 people coming up with the marketing, that those fun activations that I talked about, 3 people on the field, on the court, making sure that those activations that the sponsor paid for is happening. Or in this sense, it's Marissa and someone else doing that all by themselves, which is in one a lot, but at the same time, a cool opportunity because they kind of get to control everything, but they get to wear a lot of different hats that you typically don't get to wear somewhere else. She's not pigeonholed. She gets to have a lot of different opportunities doing a bunch of different things. So that's where the other percentages come in as well. The marketing side of that is, obviously being able to put our universities as well as Peak on a wider scale to get more notice and more traction. And then the staffing part as well, it kind of comes with the training sense of things. So where the staffing comes in is that, we're a family company, we're a fast paced growing company. The opportunities that we provide through staffing allow people to have the opportunity to grow with us and continue building our foundation as the company continues. So that's kind of where that comes in. So Marissa, I'll pass it to you for more of the specific stuff.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah. So what Greyson said, my job is to go around the community and partner with businesses in Pittsburgh to help them grow, but to also help us. It's a win-win. All their sponsorship dollars, that come in help us with operations, equipment, facilities, anything to help us run. So it's also a feel-good piece to it too. You're helping our student athletes and providing a better experience. And like Greyson said, we're doing fun promos, giving out coupons, giveaways, whatever. So it also increases the game day experience. So coming in, helping the athletic department with funds, creating good game day experiences, atmosphere, hopefully enhancing some social media, but also helping our businesses grow. That's one of my favorite parts of the job is because there's a lot of small, small town business, mom pop shops in Pittsburgh. So we get the opportunity to showcase them, what they do, and help them grow and be successful because we won't be successful without them and vice versa. So it's a unique position for me to where I feel like I can help our student athletes in our athletic department that I'm very passionate about, but also our small town business owners to help them grow and flourish as well.
So there's a lot I want to touch on within both pieces there, but with the businesses that you reach out to, is there some conversation within the athletic department to assess, okay, this company's values, this company's product, so on and so forth aligns with what we want to do as an athletic department? Let's make that decision. Or is it kind of a whoever you can get based on the town that you find yourself in?
I think a little bit of both. There are some, like you said, hey, we like what they believe in, what they're going for. So let's approach them about X, Y, and Z. I think a good example is maybe we're going to work on enhancing our student lab or computer lab in our arena. Okay, who has the philosophy or mindset that is interested in educational needs and enhancing their, the student side of the athlete for providing more computers, printing, whatever it is. So I think that's one part of it, but then also whoever we can get on board, there is still a sales piece. So we have goals we're trying to reach. So how many people can we get in the door in that sense too? So there is some cold calling and outreach there, but we always do. But we don't want to just call somebody and throw up a sign and hope it works.
Right.
So there is a process to that where once we get our foot in the door to a business, we do what we call DNA. So we're sitting down with them. Okay, what is your company doing right now? How can we help you grow? What are you interested in? Is it brand awareness? Do you want to drive traffic? What do you want?
Right.
You want to sell more of this one item? What can we do? So then it's more specific to their needs, and we come up with a plan that helps them and isn't just trying to take their sponsorship money. So
yeah, it's got to be this symbiotic kind of mutualistic relationship, right?
exactly, it's a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, and you've been at the D1 and D2 level, what are some of the significant differences between the sponsorship opportunities with Peak Sports, for instance, versus what you saw with Learfield IMG at SIU?
Yeah, I think number one is definitely staffing. So what you're able to do with a limited number of people at the D2 versus D1 level, that makes a big difference. But also what your venues have to offer. We're fortunate enough here at Pitt State, we just got a video board and digital LED scores table in basketball, but that just happened this year. So I guess inventory, number one, makes a huge difference. And so adding video board digital elements to a venue is huge. It just expands your options on sponsor scrolls, different content you can put on there. It just makes a huge difference when it comes to selling and game day experience. So I guess that would be the second one. One's being staffing, to just your venues and the inventory options you have.
I would guess the size of the businesses that you're able to approach for those sponsorship opportunities would also be a pretty significant difference, depending on the town. I mean,
yeah, depending on where your school is. I mean, even within Peak, I think is a good example. We're in all different, I mean, we'll use Missouri Western for an example. The Griffins, they're in St. Joe, way bigger than in Pittsburgh, and their proximity to Kansas City. So they have a lot more businesses they can reach out to that might have some bigger budgets, which makes a big difference than being in Pittsburgh, which is smaller, so, and limited options. But we've been very fortunate where Pitt State has a ton of community support, and they all really want to tie into our brand and what we do.
Good. Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed since I've been up here is the sense of community and the sense of pride in the university is just you can sense it everywhere, which I think is something really, really cool and something that was really attractive for me, at least at Pitt State, and I imagine that resonates with a lot of people. So Greyson, you mentioned some of the inventory, and Marissa alluded to this too, with inventory being such a big deal. Can you explain that concept of inventory and break that down a little bit more for us, for those of us that might not be as familiar with what we mean whenever we say inventory in a sponsorship marketing sense?
Yeah, and then I'll probably have Marissa chime in a little bit on this, but I think one of the biggest things is, I mean, you kind of have a lot of resources that you can go off with. So, I mean, inventory can be as simple as like signage or PA reads, video board, advertisement, social media. It can kind of get as creative as you want or be as simplistic as you want it to be. But it kind of gives you a wider range of just different opportunities and different variables that you can use for partners. And like I said, I'll let Marissa kind of chime in on some examples that she has with Pitt State and what she kind of does with that.
Yeah, I'll just break it down to like just football, for example. It can range from, and Greyson, you did a good job, physical signage. So on the video board or on the east side rail, you'll see some signage at our stadium, on the play clock. So it can be physical signage. It can be digital. So on our video board, we have scrolls, or a sponsor like under the team score, quarter sponsors, commercials during timeouts, or it can be a little bit more creative, like our in-game promos. So our shorts trash service, long toss, so throwing a football into a trash can to win prizes. Or it can be our, like Kansas Lottery does, fan of the game. So selecting seat section row, you pick your fan and they get a prize pack. It could be social media content, where their logo's on the game day graphic or score update. So inventory, it's a wide realm of things, and honestly could be anything and everything you can think of. There's even businesses that have more of a philanthropic attitude. So let's say they want to give $100 for every sack. I'm just making this up. But it can be creative. So for every sack Pitt State gets, they're going to donate $100 to the food pantry. And that would be considered inventory. So really anything and everything you can think of that you could sell that's an element we would call inventory.
Yeah, there's a bunch of famous quotes about, what's marketable within collegiate athletics, what's marketable within sport, and it's essentially getting to the point where it's every blank space within a stadium or an arena, and even beyond that with the digital signage and how you can rotate that signage in and out. What are, I guess, the most popular items that potential sponsors are looking for, and what's the kind of hierarchy of price breakdown for those different types and sizes of signage?
Yeah, so our most, I guess, the item that people are most interested would definitely just be anything around football, but more specifically the Jungletron, the pregame scroll and the right panel ad during football. Everybody wants to be on it. But you set a limit because you can only have so many going on.
Right.
And you want it to be visible. You don't want it to scroll one time through the game.
And you have it timed out for like a certain number of seconds per.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Ours is set for 7 seconds. And we limit it to 30 spots. And that includes our own. We do some of our own like upcoming games and spotlight student athlete, whatever. So
right.
Just so you do get enough visibility for your sponsor. So that would definitely be high on the list, or any permanent signage around the building, which we have a ton of opportunity there. We just started getting into the physical signage on our stadium because there is a fine line in keeping it clean and
right.
classy. We always say you don't want to NASCAR it up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. We don't need it to look like the side of a NASCAR racer. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So there is, ways to doing that. And if I hope some of the students start paying attention to this a little bit more, but at the stadium, inside the stadium, the signage, they're monochrome. So it's a red backdrop with a white logo, and that's all you can do. Just to keep it clean and on brand, and not, NASCAR. So yeah, definitely. So football elements. I like to lean people more towards, instead of like a 30-second commercial that you'd see on TV, do something more interactive. So like a helmet shuffle or an encore on-field promo, something more engaging that it'll make people want to put their phone down. Because sometimes you'll see timeout. Oh, let me check my text, social media, whatever. So what can we do to make them pay attention to the board or to the field?
Right.
That's kind of our goal. And it for two things, they pay more attention, but it just makes a better game day experience and an atmosphere. And to kind of get off on a tangent a little bit, but people, you can watch games anywhere now. A lot of people kind of prefer to watch it at home. You have your own food, your own drinks, whatever, it's comfortable. So what can we do to make people want to go to the game? So it's not just the football game or just the basketball game anymore. It's the experience around it. So what are we doing for tailgating in Guerrilla Village? What are we doing during timeouts? What it's concessions like? So it's a lot bigger than just the game now. You have to provide an experience and a social event to make them want to leave their couch, basically.
So what do those pricing structures look like between the different types of inventory that are offered to potential sponsors?
Yeah, so physical signage is definitely the higher price point for us. Just due to the fact it's up all year round.
Yeah.
The video board doesn't have to be on. I keep using the stadium as an example. But so when we host other events, so track meets, high school events, Shrine Bowl, JUCO National Championship. So there's a lot of other things happening in the venue other than just a Pitt State football game. And you can see it from the street. So when people are walking by, driving by, whatever, it's up there, you're getting more eyeballs, it's more visible. So those are definitely higher price points. And then after physical signage, it'd be your big one, like game sponsorships. I'd put on the higher one just because we're putting your logo on literally everything we're doing. Game program, the cup, the concession stand cup, I should be more specific. On the website, just everything advertising the game day graphic, whatever, you're getting that tailgate for 100 people. So that would kind of be the next tier. And then your digital content. And then after that, I would say like program ads, PA reads would be the bottom tier. And sometimes those are good. You want to build a package to have more value to what you're selling. So those are easy things that, really don't cost you money that you can throw in to make a bigger package and more appealing to your sponsor when you're trying to sell them.
And you mentioned earlier, whenever you reach out to these businesses, you sit down and have that conversation with them, what they're looking to get out of the arrangement, aside from having their logo in the stadium or on a game day flyer or whatever. What are some of the more common things that you're seeing that those sponsors want from that relationship?
Yeah, I would say it probably depends on where you're at too. Some might think return on investment would be number one, which is, they're putting in $3,000 for a sponsorship and how much are they getting back from that, from what they're advertising, return on investment. But really it's brand affiliation with Pitt State, because they want to be a part of it and know how big it is in the community. And they can say, hey, I was on the Junkletron. Did you see my business? And just they're supporting Pitt State. So there is a love for the school. So honestly, like going in, they're just excited to be a part of it, which makes it easier for me. But I guess that would maybe be more so for the local, but we do try to reach outside just local brands too. Taco Bell would be a good example. We're not necessarily working with the local Taco Bell, but their headquarters are in New York. So how do you sell Pittsburgh State and little Pittsburgh, Kansas, to a franchise that works with all these schools, and how to get them to spend their money here? Luckily they're a historical partner, so have learned over the years that how important it is. They just added a gorilla statue to the front of their restaurant. So
did they?
Catching on. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was part of their remodel. They put the gorilla statue out there, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it depends on who they are and where they're at. But a lot of them are just excited to be affiliated with Pitt State.
Yeah, it's interesting because we see, even the current trends with companies struggling to find seasonal work, part-time work, so on and so forth. So it's good that companies are still willing to spend that money with and for that affiliation. What are some of the more unique sponsorship opportunities that either of you have seen, either firsthand or know of throughout collegiate athletics or within peak even?
I think some of the kind of like what Marissa touched on, from an inventory standpoint, is like how you touched on, you can really sell virtually anything.
Yeah.
If you can sell it, then it can be added to your inventory. I think one of the coolest ones I've seen is at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. They partnered with a brewing company, a coffee brewing company, and have their own, the Citadel Bulldog blend. And so now they have their own, I wish I had it here because I have it in my office at home, but they have two different types of coffee bags. I think it's a blonde roast and a dark roast. And it has the Citadel's colors on it. It has their logo and it says the Bulldog blend. And so not only is that a crazy unique way that gets a coffee company excited, but also from an athletic standpoint, that gets everyone else excited as well. It's something very different than something that's just signage or a video board commercial. It's more of something that you can, fans at home can actually obtain, can actually hold in their hands and use. And it's also just a cool way that you don't see very often of getting, universities involved in that aspect. That's one of the bigger ones. I know that we've done smaller kind of unique ones. We presented a at one of our schools to a weight loss company, a mat that you put under the registers at concession stands. And I believe we put them in bathrooms as well. So when you step up to the cash register, you look down and there's a scale that's breaking and it says, need to lose weight, go to weightwatchers.com.
Oh, no.
So
Oh, no.
that is one that I don't believe I can't remember if we ended up doing it or not. But that just kind of shows the uniqueness to what we're able to do. I mean,
Like there might be a little bit of backlash on that one.
the possibilities are kind of endless. Like, you really can do anything in our industry, especially from a sponsorship standpoint. It can get super unique. Like, I don't know, there was a post that went on ESPN recently where, the sweepers that you do at a basketball games, like why with the sweat and the dust and whatever is on there, it was a cup of ramen noodles.
Yeah,
So the top
I
of it,
pulled that up. I was gonna share that. I don't know if you can see it.
It's a cup with, the
That's
mom
great.
noodles, and that was a promotion that they did somewhere else. But stuff like that can get extremely unique. The kind of the possibilities are endless. That's something that we try and teach our general managers, our county executives, our interns, everyone's a part of Peak, is that it gets a lot more exciting than just putting a bunch of signs up and running commercials. Like you can virtually do anything you want as long as someone's willing to pay for it and it makes sense.
Yeah. So Marissa, as part of your job as a GM to kind of come up with those unique ways to activate those sponsorships and provide those kind of unique opportunities, and if so, what are some of the resources that you rely on to find those?
Yeah, so part of our job too is to work really closely with our marketing director. So our assistant AD of marketing will have conversations, and it's more so kind of their job to come up with fun, creative, like say events at a game. Like
is that Darian here? That's Darian, right?
Yeah. But like you'll see Princess Night at women's basketball or whatever it is. So working with them, and if okay, these events are going on, okay, what can I do to sell it? Maybe I have a partner that maybe it's a jewelry company that wants to partnership with the Princess Night or a winery, whatever. So kind of looking for a client that would fit within the theme of the night or the promo or whatever it is. So working very closely with that person, and kind of alluding back to earlier. So whenever I did both marketing and sponsorships, that's where it came easy. I was like, oh, I want to do this. I'll go sell it and let's go.
Done,
and done. So now I guess adding another person, add a little bit more communication. You have to work together, and it takes a little bit more time, I guess. But yeah, I think that's one of the most things I enjoy about it is the creativity and doing unique things and trying to provide experiences for our fans. So,
Greyson, can you kind of profile the portfolio of schools that Peak represents and kind of, identify some factors that might make that group of schools different than a group of, SEC institutions, for lack of a better example?
Yeah. So, we currently have 20 universities, and all of our universities are kind of in that FCS, low D1, high impact D2 range of kind of college athletics. And so part of that portfolio just comes with us being an organization that's only been around for about 10 years, the time frame in the sport industry, and, just kind of getting our foot somewhere and just growing as a company. So really the kind of the basic part of that is, you got to start somewhere. We started with the University of Central Arkansas 10 years ago. Ryan and Kara Holloway, who are our owners, that was literally their property. They were the Marissa of that university, while trying to also bring on other universities and then managing them at the same time. So, for the most part, the universities that we started at or work at somewhat now, some are different. They've never had a third party that has been able to come in and generate revenue. So it's a good place for us to put our foothold in the industry. But the biggest thing is that the universities that we work with, the communities, the towns, the cities that we work with are, a lot different than, if you're working with the University of Texas in Austin. Most of these communities have a very, very strong sense of relationships. They have a strong sense of tradition. They're, for the most part, directly connected to the university in some way, shape, or form. If you're going around Austin trying to sell for the University of Texas, you're probably going to go talk to Joe at McDonald's. And Joe grew up in California, moved to New York to be a stock-owned banker, then moved to Miami to do this, and then Austin to own a McDonald's. And so, he's someone that knows about Texas, but he's kind of like, it's a good investment to do that. Whereas if you're in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and you go talk to Joe at your local like retail shop or automotive shop, he's someone that grew up in Pittsburgh, Kansas, went to Pittsburgh State. His grandparents and his parents went to Pittsburgh State. His kids are going to go to Pittsburgh State. So it's not necessarily them now looking at it as an investment. They're saying, well, now I want to be able to give back to the university that I love so much, and the community that I love so much. And so really the traditions that we work in not only allow us to help give back in a much bigger way, it allows us to make a much bigger impact. Again, if you're working in Austin and you're help bringing in hundreds of $1,000s a year or whatever it might be to Texas, that's great money, but let's be honest, they get that on a yearly basis. They're going to be happy about it, but it's not something that's going to be very changing. Whereas, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, no matter how much you bring in, no matter the dollar amount, whenever Marissa starts bringing in more revenue, that can create a much bigger impact. She talked about it before. Sometimes these sponsorships can bring in more scholarship opportunities for students and student athletes that have never gotten this opportunity before. Maybe if you're somewhere else and then they have to drive 18 hours for a road trip, now they can fly 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever it may be. Instead of driving, they can go to your local, they can go to like a nice steakhouse instead of going to Cece's Pizza or a Pizza Hut or something like that and have dinner. So long story short, we're able to make a much bigger impact in the universities that we work with. And the reason why our portfolio is what it is because the tradition and the backbone of these universities communities is something that we connect with greatly, something we're able to make a bigger impact with, and something that we've just kind of gone along with, that we've really been invested and interested in, and just kind of speaks to our culture.
Yeah. And that's something I noticed too when looking is you're in a lot of smaller towns, and as Marissa's talked about, the impact that you're able to have in a smaller town with a university with a lot of community pride around that particular university. I know UCA is very similar, former Southland Conference school. There's something special about those smaller colleges in smaller towns and capitalizing on that tradition and those relationships within that community is something unique. Does Peak intend to expand into those bigger D1 schools, or has Peak kind of found its niche where it is now?
A little bit of both. So, it kind of goes back to just being only around for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Being in that kind of spectrum, it takes time to grow. Now we've been growing pretty ridiculously, and we're going to continue growing in that aspect. We just announced recently that now we're getting in the ticket sales space for college athletics. So now not only are we doing sponsorships, but we're able to do the university's ticket sales as well. So that's kind of another branch of Peak that's growing. We partnered with Jacksonville State earlier this year, and now they have been promoted to the USA Conference USA and the FBS world. So that's our first FBS school.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of just one of those things that as an organization, as we get more recognition, as we just keep going along with the process we have now and continue to grow and keep having success, that, these other schools, these bigger time schools will start to notice us. We've had traction with, some other kind of bigger FBS schools. And it's something that's been a work in progress. Some have worked, some have been more in the talks, but we want to expand more and more into the higher depths of college athletics. It's kind of just one of those things that's long-term that we're kind of rolling with the punches with the schools we have now, and continuing to build our FCS and high impact D2 kind of spectrum as we keep adding schools in that area. But growing into a higher echelon of D1 athletics is definitely not out of the question. It's just going to take some time.
So not to try to get too many trade secrets out of you, but what's the strategy on dealing with the bear that is Learfield IMG then? Because that's theoretically, if you get into that upper echelon of colleges, that's who you're going to be competing against. So what does that strategy look like insofar as you understand it?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, even now, we're not going into universities and saying, hey, we'd love to come work with you. And they look at us and like, cool, sign a check, let's do it. Sign a contract, let's do it. for the most part, we are going up against your Van Wagners, your Aspires, your Playflies, your Learfields. We're going up against these other competitors for the most part whenever we're talking to universities. And there have been times where we have lost bids and won bids against other competitors. And that's just how it is, just the name of the game. But for the most part, the strategy is pretty simple. You kind of go in there, you offer what you can offer. We show our track record, what we've been able to do, what we've been successful at, talk about what we bring to the table. I think one of the greatest things is Ryan Holloway has a very personable type of personality. He's very transparent and says, hey, this is what we can do. We'd love to be a part of it. And I think he does a very great job at that. He doesn't like to really kind of, he likes to be honest and be transparent on what we bring to the table and what we can do. And so I think now as we start kind of working our way up in college athletics, a little in the higher spectrum, we'll have a little bit more competition, but at the end of the day, one thing we always try and push is, hey, this is your university. This is your community. You need to make sure that you bring the best third party, whoever they may be in, to make sure that you're getting the most benefit out of it, that your university is getting the most benefit out of it, that your students, your athletic department. So it's really just having a transparent conversation and saying, hey, this is what we bring to the table. If you think we'd be a benefit, we'd love to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, this is for you to figure out and see what works best. As we keep competing going on, we'll just roll with the punches and just see how it goes.
Yeah. It sounds like there's kind of a recognition of how corporatized that third party relationship can be. I think that's a big reason for both Learfield IMG's success, but also one of the reasons for space in the market for a company like Peak Sports. And as you alluded to, Ryan is very personable in his interactions, right? There's going to be a significant number of universities that are drawn to that and pushed away from the kind of corporatized interactions that they might have with some of these other businesses. So really, really good stuff. Really interesting there. I think it sounds like Peak Sports kind of knows who it is as a company, and selling that as a company is sometimes the hardest thing, but it sounds like for Peak right now, it's going pretty well. So that's great. Are there any other trends within the activation, sponsor acquisition, game day marketing, that kind of thing that y'all are really paying attention to right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest is, COVID going on. So doing as much digital as you can. Being at Division II with limited resources makes it a little more difficult because it does cost money to say going from a printed program ad to a digital ad. It does cost money. So definitely leaning towards everything like a digital ticket, your mobile app, more social, being more transparent and more behind the scenes look. So video, photos, whatever that is. I definitely think it's leaning more digital and giving them content that they can see beyond just the game day. So
I think this is more of an internal thing that has to do, with Peak, but, conference realignment as well as the kind of recent surge of resigning athletic directors from COVID plays a very big part in our business. So for those that don't know, because of how COVID has been over the past couple of years, for us specifically as a company, and I know a lot of other businesses, they felt the effects of COVID immediately. Whereas, universities and some athletic directors and athletic staff are feeling it either now or starting to, and it kind of got pushed a little bit from everything involved. And so there's a lot of athletic directors, a lot of just personnel in the athletic industry that have been doing this for a long time. They're like, hey, this is kind of crazy. This isn't what it used to be. I've had a great run, and I either think I want to do something else, take a step back, or a lot of the times there's a lot of athletic directors that are honestly just retiring. They just want to take a step back, enjoy life, and not have to worry about the stress and strain of being an athletic director. And so I think one of the things that people don't realize is our main contact and source that connects us with the university is an athletic director. If you think of it like in a sense of our tournaments in college baseball and our college baseball tournaments, if a college coach leaves a college team and go play somewhere else, that next coach could come in here and say, oh, we don't want to play at your tournaments anymore. Sorry. And they'll go somewhere else. They'll go use one of our competitors. Or a great example is a coach can leave from a smaller program that we have a great relationship with and get promoted and go from maybe like a small FBS school to a high Power 5 school. And they're like, hey, I remember you guys, you were awesome. I want to bring my big time program to your tournament. Let's figure something out. So that's something that's kind of becoming a trend in the industry that can kind of not necessarily be something that's an impact, but it's something that we have to be wary of. It's something that's just kind of going on that people don't really realize. And then I'll touch on this really briefly just because it's kind of a mess itself, but the NIL rule is a crazy thing that has a lot of strings attached that we don't really understand. And strictly as a third party company, we're in the place where not necessarily we could say, oh, well, this is how we feel about it. Let's go with this. We might have our own opinion on it, but we have 20 other universities that might have a completely other different opinion on it.
Right.
And so that's something that I get a lot of questions about. And typically I can't give an answer for it because it's just something that's so ever changing. Just it's crazy. And something that is just going to keep evolving. And we've just been watching it from afar, trying to figure out what it's going to look like as it gets closer, as things kind of ramp up. But it's just something that's kind of changing sports, will forever change sports, as we've kind of seen with the transfer portal and everything going on along those lines. But yeah, for the most part, those are kind of the basic trends that we look at and keep up with as a company internally.
Yeah, I would imagine NIL puts y'all in a bit of a precarious situation considering you're managing the sponsors for the university. And if an athlete goes out and gets a sponsorship that is a direct competitor of one of the sponsors that you've acquired, kind of puts you in a weird spot. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I know Kansas hasn't, in terms of the state law, hasn't filed anything yet. Last time I checked, they dismissed from their legislative session without passing anything, without voting on anything. I know there's a bill in the works somewhere in the Kansas state legislature, but nothing has been passed yet. So we're kind of in limbo as well. Okay, so say students want to get involved. Say students want to work in collegiate athletics. They hear you two talk so passionately about what you do. How do they get started? What skills do they need? How do they get that experience?
I get this question all the time. Every student wants to know, hey, how do I get to where you are? How do I get in the industry? You just got to start somewhere. And sometimes that can sound really complicated. And it's like, well, I don't know where to start. First, you need to figure out what you want to do. And if you have no idea what you want to do, that is completely fine. When I took this position with Peak, I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I was a grad student, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Throughout my bachelor's degree, I had no idea exactly what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be in the industry and do something. And that's completely fine to do that. Sometimes people find a spot in the industry and they just want to grind, they just want to learn, and they just want to grow. The best thing you can do is talk to other professionals in the industry. One of the first things I ever did was say, what do I want to do? No idea. So let me just find someone and start talking to them. So I reached out to the VP of Toyota Stadium for FC Dallas. His name is Nick Schaefer a while back. I've reached out to Breon Dennis Jr. He's the VP of Community Relations for the Frisco Rough Riders in Texas. I reached out to Nathan and Ryan, and I just talked to them. I literally just sat down with them and said, where are you from? Who are you? What do you do? How did you get in this position? What's some advice you could give me? And just talk, because I promise you they'll give you a lot of advice and a peace of mind that you won't get somewhere else. And one of the biggest things is a lot of people think these high up executives or these people in a sport industry, even me, people think that I'm some scary person that isn't going to want to talk to them. Like if you come up and talk to me, I'll probably have an hour conversation about how you can get into the industry. You just got to start somewhere. You got to start talking to people. You got to find your niche and just start learning. It's seriously as simple as finding someone's email, emailing them, setting up a 5-minute conversation. Just say, hey, I'd love to talk to you for about 15 minutes, pick your brain, talk about what you do and see if it's something I'd be interested in, maybe ask you some advice. Talk to them for 15, 30 minutes, say, hey, I'd love to do this again next week. Can we talk again, or maybe have lunch, talk again, and just keep creating that network. And then I promise you, eventually, either you'll learn you want to do what they want to do, or a door will open up somewhere else. The funny thing about Peak, and I'll stop ranting because I do that very well. When I was talking to Peak, I was working their tournament for the second time. Like I said, I was an unpaid GA. I did research for free. I taught classes for free. I just wanted to do something. and I was walking with one of my not mentor professors. I call her my mentor mom. Her name's Catherine Buckley Tessum. She was she was the executive for the Frisco Rough Riders. Amazing person. But I was walking with her and I was saying, the dream opportunity is when someone calls you to offer you a job and I have to stop applying and doing interviews. And not even 3 weeks later, Wes called me and said, hey, we have an opportunity for you. Would you love to take the job? And it was as simple as that. So my advice, just start somewhere, just talk to someone, get involved in some way, and just see where it goes. It's about as much as you can do.
Come talk to me.
Yeah. So tell us about the stuff that's available to work with you directly, Marissa.
Yeah, there's actually a job opening right now.
Account executive, right?
Yeah, like sales associate. So my right-hand person. So everything we just talked about today is basically you would help me with that. I would do a lot of the selling, but then there's a contract you have to do afterward, and then you actually have to do what you say, which is a big part of it. Because at the end of the year, you're going back to these people with a recap and trying to renew them. So you got to fulfill what you say you're going to do. So that's what I need help with. Fulfilling the contracts, the activation, making sure everything's getting done, proof of fulfillment, which is, okay, their signs up, take a picture of it, let's show them. So I need help. It's just me right now. And we talked a lot about the more people, the better things are and the more you can do. Yep. So I need a person. Teamwork Online is where the link is.
Okay, Teamwork Online, good.
Yes.
If you look either one of us up on LinkedIn or Peak Sport Management up on LinkedIn, you can find all of our contact information, or if you message me or Marissa and say, are there any opportunities, we can get those to you. If you're interested in an internship, just to get some experience in the industry, if you're someone like myself that had none and just wanted to get started somewhere and learn, this is a great opportunity to basically see the sales, marketing, and events in college athletics. We look for interns every single semester. There's always opportunities. There's always stuff to do. There's always stuff to learn. So there's a lot of great opportunities there as well.
Awesome.
I will say, even if you're not interested in marketing sponsorships, we do everything else. So still come talk to me. I can hook you up with the right people, introduce you. Everyone's more than willing to have a conversation or have you shadow, come to a game day, whatever it is. So just reach out and we'll get you connected.
Awesome. So LinkedIn for both of you. Does Peak Sports have any social media channels that they kind of advertise what it is they do to give students and listeners a visual?
Yeah. So Peak Sports MGMT is all of our socials.
Okay.
We actually posted stuff like, I don't know if you can see that, but we post stuff all the time, like full-time positions. I post stuff about internship opportunities. That's where we keep update. We post stuff like people's birthdays, new people that we hire. So it kind of gives you an update on everything that we're doing. So Peak Sports MGMT for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find a lot of information about us. You kind of see our family culture here and there throughout that. But or if you go through our website, you can find some more information as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I will add, Peak does an amazing job of hiring from within. So if you're part of their family, they always give you an opportunity to say you're interested first before they post it anywhere. And they're growing. Goal is to have 50 schools in 5 years. So there's going to be a ton of opportunity now. And they take care of their people. And I've witnessed it with my own eyes. So that's the type of company you want to work for.
Great. Excellent. Thank you both so much for joining us today. I really appreciate y'all's time. Students, listeners, be sure to go check out Peak Sports on all their socials. Be sure to check out Greyson and Marissa on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Other than that, thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. First podcast, inaugural episode. I kept my promise. I told Greyson about this early on, and here we are. So we'll get this wrapped up. We'll get this hopefully posted by next Tuesday. But yeah, thanks again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Y'all have a good one.
You too.